talked about the app, the Chip Ingram app that you can download from the App Store, and it is my absolute favorite way to travel. So I always plug in, you know, hit play on that app, and I listen to whatever series Chip Ingram is preaching on. And right now he is preaching on finding God, and it's this particular one that I just listened to is Finding God. I don't know the exact title, but when you're experiencing depression. That may be the exact title, but I'm not sure. So he's preaching on, you know, what about those times when you are really truly experiencing depression? Where is God then? You know, what are we as Christians supposed to do with that? And I listened to the first part of it, and there's another part that I haven't gotten to yet. But I did want to hop on here and kind of talk about it, because I thought, you know what, that's an excellent topic to talk about with you guys today, because it's very, very close to my heart, because I have had so much experience with depression, and praise God, I have not had serious bouts of depression, you know, in recent time, but we all experience that, you know, depressed feeling off and on. I'm talking about normal, you know, just the normal kind of depression that everybody experiences when it kind of flows into your life. I mean, this can happen on a weekly basis that you experience these types of things. But the depression that I was talking about that I have not experienced recently is like true clinical depression. So I just wanted to talk about my experiences a little bit with depression. I talked about it a little bit in my testimony video, but I definitely struggled with depression growing up. A lot of it was, I think, physical, because I had severe hypothyroidism, and a lot of it was also just, you know, some external things that were happening in my life at that time. But no matter what the cause, when you find yourself in a place of depression, it's a dark place to be. You know, it's quite the dark place to be. And when you're there, it can feel like you're the only one who has ever experienced it before. Not only that, but it can also feel like you're never going to get out of it. And it's also embarrassing. It's an embarrassing place to be, and it's a place where you don't want to share how you're feeling with other people. Because who wants to be honest about the fact that you're feeling this way with people who may be going through some really awesome things in their life, you know, which only makes you feel worse about where you're at in yours. So I have most definitely been there, and you know, it can feel like you will never see the light at the end of the tunnel. I've actually got a really close friend of mine right now who is going through a pretty intense depression. And, you know, the circumstances that kind of contribute to the depression feel really hopeless to this person. And, you know, in and of themselves, they cannot do anything about the situation. And I know what that feels like. I've definitely experienced that. Several years ago, we went through a very, very difficult time. We had signed on with a property management company. My husband was doing tons and tons of work. We invested, you know, our company in doing this work. We put lots and lots of money into it. We had a contract with this property management company that stated when they would pay us for the work that had been completed, etc., etc. But what happened was the property management company did not pay us the way they were supposed to pay. We would go months sometimes and not get paid for work that had been done. And whenever we would ask about it, they'd kind of, yeah, oh yes, we're getting to that, no worries, but there's still more work to be done. So they wanted us to continue doing work for them without getting what was rightfully ours. So we continued to sink money into this work. Well, it was, knocking on, November, December. We were still doing lots and lots of work for this company, but our funds were running very, very low because they would pay eventually, but by the time that they would pay, it would be so late that we had already gone into debt, trying to float the work. And so what we were getting paid for was just barely keeping us above water. So during that time, all of our bills were racking up. Our house payment was seriously delinquent, and I was feeling pretty hopeless. Maddie was a baby, I think. Yes, Maddie had just been born. And I was not working at the time, and so everything was just kind of falling apart before our eyes. She had colic, she was crying all the time. I was suffering from a little bit of postpartum depression because of that, lack of sleep, just everything felt like in my life that it was falling apart. And I was really, really down, seriously down. And I felt like no one can understand what I'm going through right now. No one gets the calls from the people that, we owe money, but us, but me. Nobody sees, what we're dealing with but us, and it felt so empty and so alone. And when you try to talk about the situation that you're going through with someone else, they can empathize, and say, wow, that's really tough, but nobody truly knows the depth of the struggle that you're going through. And so I felt so alone, and just so much despair and hopelessness. And our situation got worse. It got worse. We ended up just losing pretty much everything. We sold things that we owned just to try and pay off debts that we had used, to keep the company afloat. And eventually we ended up losing our home. We really lost everything. And I've been very reluctant to talk about this on my YouTube channel because it's such a painful and personal experience. But the reason that I'm talking about it today is because I have felt God really speak into my heart about being really open about tough times and struggles with you guys, because the problem is when you're in this type of depression is you feel alone, and you feel like no one has ever gone through what you're going through. And the reason you feel that way a lot of times is because no one talks about it, because it's embarrassing. You want to act like you have it all together, but in reality you're falling apart. And I really wanted to share this with you guys, to show you, if you are going through something similar, that God did bring us out of that valley. He brought us out of that valley. So let me just back up and talk about that. So we ended up, it was Christmas time. During that time, we were struggling to make our bills. We had no Christmas for our kids. We were really struggling. But, at the last minute, we got some help. Christmas happened. We tried very hard to catch up on house payments and bills, and we'd get caught up through the grace of God, and then the property management company would still not pay us correctly, and then we would sink again. So this was just like a vicious cycle. And like I said, eventually we did end up losing our home, and we had to move out and find a rental home. And so that is the reason why we've been in a rental home for several years now, rebuilding credit, trying very hard to get back to a point to where, you know, we can recover from what happened. And we are actually getting there. So I'm really excited. You know, at the time I thought, this is the end of the world. You know, this is literally the end of the world. Losing my home, my credit's gonna be completely in the tank. We just were in complete despair. But God really, really, really showed up and pulled us through. And let me just tell you, during that time, my kids were in public school, and they would have stayed in that school because it was super close to our house. When we moved into our first rental home, the school system in that area was not the greatest, and that's when we decided to start homeschooling. And what a blessing that has been for our family. What an absolute blessing it's been for our children. And had that situation not have happened, we wouldn't have started homeschooling. I wouldn't have made the friends that I've made through our homeschooling experience in our community. And you know, God really at that time started to work deeply inside of me. And I can see where, you know, He turned that situation into something for my good, for our good. Sometimes we have to get very broken to see that we cannot do this life without His power. And really, we were both just completely broken. And so I know a lot about depression. I know a lot how it feels when you wake up in the morning and there is just nothing that you can find to be happy about. Nothing. And I did not want to answer the phone. And I didn't answer the phone. I didn't want to see anyone. I honestly, you know, we didn't have the money to pay bills, so I just stopped paying everything. It was just like complete despair. Just complete and utter despair. It was just such a dark time, and I know that there are some of you out here watching who are maybe going through this situation, not exactly, but maybe going through like a really, really tough financial situation that is completely out of your control. Like this one was completely out of our control. And I just want to encourage you guys to reach out to someone. Reach out to someone and let them know what you're going through. Don't be so prideful that you can't reach out and say, hey, can you pray for me? We're going through a really tough time right now and I'm struggling. Reach out to someone, just anyone that you can think of, and say, pray for me. Reach out to me. If you don't have a friend, if you don't have a family member, send me an email. I've had that happen many, many times, and I'm happy to pray for you. So just be encouraged, guys. God will bring you through that dark valley. Foreclosure, financial stress, all of that is intense. It is intense. It is a dark valley, but God tells us that He will provide for our very basic needs. He will give us food and He will give us clothing. He doesn't promise that we will live in a home that we purchased. He does not promise that we will live in a mansion. He doesn't promise that we will always have 2 vehicles. He does not or a vehicle at all, for that matter. He does not promise those things for us, but He does promise that He will meet our need. He will meet our need. So when you're screaming out, God, where are you? You said you're going to meet this need. You know, get the big picture. God is going to provide you food and clothing. The rest of it does not matter in the scheme of eternity. So keep the faith, draw near to Christ, and He promises that He will draw near to you. He will carry you through this time, and He will bring blessings to you through it. So please reach out, and don't be ashamed of what you're going through. I've been there, and it's tough, but God can definitely use these types of situations for His glory, and that is exactly what I am doing and being obedient to Him by bringing this to you guys, so that I can be so I can use my situation for His glory to give you guys encouragement and show you to point your face and your eyes to Christ, okay? Don't just lay down and give up. So to God be all the glory for everything that He has done for me and that He is going to do for you. Be faithful, live according to the guidelines that He has set out before us in His Word, and He will reward you. He will reward your faith, your heart, and your obedience. So I love you guys. I really hope and pray that this message has been a blessing to you, that through some of my past struggles that God can be lifted high and His name be glorified.